You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us 870-275-9799. We just got through talking about Donald Trump coming off of his Paris climate accord speech, where he says, "Hey, we're pulling out. We're going to try to get a better deal, and if so, great. If not, great as well." Joining us now, I want to welcome back to the program Mr. Richard Castor is with us, calling from Baxter County. Richard, thank you so much for being on the program.
Hello, Paul, and a great big happy confefe to you and yours.
Oh, man. I saw the memes. I saw the memes before I heard about the story.
Good.
And so
good.
I was very confused. I was like, what is going on? And then I had to Google it, and I figured it out. Yeah. Isn't that crazy how famous he is? Isn't that crazy? Donald Trump can misspell a word on Twitter, and, it breaks the internet. That's nuts.
Oh, it's absolutely nuts. But even what's a better case study is how the media reacts to this, right? And how the Trump administration still operates outside of the media. They did it beautifully in the election. But then you have Sean Spencer, who, the press secretary, tell the media when the reporters were asking, what does it mean? What does it mean? Is it a mistake? What does it say about the president that he would leave a misspelled word on Twitter for 3 hours? And Sean Spencer just says, well, I believe the president and a small group of people knew exactly what he meant to say. And their heads just exploded. They're throwing up on themselves over this. And the American people are just having, a good, healthy laugh about it. Right? Yeah. It just shows you the disconnect between Main Street and Washington, D.C. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, the people on the West and East Coasts, and that's where your mainstream media is too. I mean, they really still think that they're calling the shots. They really still think that they can have an effect on on flyover country. I mean, they do have an effect on those who are leftists, and that's of course why they all needed therapy after the election, because they all thought there was no chance that the outcome would be what it was. But for flyover country, I mean, it's just you're right. It is a complete and total disconnect. Have you seen the stuff about Paris and the Paris Climate Accords and him pulling out of that? What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, and I think it's another example of a promise made and a promise kept. The swamp monsters in D.C. were doing all they could to keep us in that agreement, and they were using the argument that it was the only way America would have a seat at the table, at the international table, where our voice could be heard, right, if we stayed in this agreement, which, if you read the details of it, and for those who may not know, it's basically an agreement where America is going to lead the country in destroying our own industry for the sake of the environment. And China and Russia and India, they get to start doing it maybe 10, 15 years from now. But America's going to go ahead and do it first, right? So this was Trump saying, no, that's not part of an American first mentality where we put our own interests ahead of everyone else's, where we worry about our own job growth, where we worry about our own families, right? And so, I think it was a breath of fresh air. I almost was a little bit worried when I heard that Trump's son-in-law was pushing him to stay in the agreement.
Yeah.
But I think, cool heads prevailed, and I think he did the right thing. And he's just such a breath of fresh air that we have an elected politician who's actually doing what he said he was going to do, and he's actually fighting where he said he was going to fight.
Yeah.
Right? And that's part of the disconnect, is that for so long the American people have been frustrated by people finally getting to D.C. or down to Little Rock in the Marble Palace and catching that marble fever and saying, well, once you get down there, things are a little bit different. You have to play the game. You have to make the deals and, deal with the power brokers. And Trump's just up there throwing the tables over and saying, no, this is what we are going to do. We're not going to argue about it. We're not going to fight about it. This is the path forward. Try to keep up with me. And I think the average guy who lives in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, those states that are just have such a strong foundation in hardworking men and women who have been losing their jobs and just want someone in D.C. to fight the fight and go where he says he's going to go. The media is not picking up on that, right? And I say to the conservative movement, pay attention to what's happening here. You know, when you look at Congress's poll numbers, or you hear the RNC talking about, oh, this might be a horrible Democrat wave election, that's only because Republicans don't know how to win. We don't know how to fight. You have people like Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, Paul Ryan, who campaign as conservatives but govern as moderates, and that's not what we send them up there to do. Yeah. And I think, you know, if we in the conservative movement don't really pay attention and understand that ever since the Tea Party, this is what we've been asking for. We've been asking for someone to go to D.C. and actually fight. This is our moment. We have the biggest majority since the 1920s up there with the Republican Party, and we have to grasp it and not let these distractions like a tweet or Russia or anything take away this really great opportunity we have. It would be such a shame if we let that happen.
Yeah, you know, you're right. We're talking with Richard Castor. He is the host of the show, The View from Hillsdale, and we're always really excited to have him on because you make an incredible amount of sense. I got this tweet. I talked about this last hour, but and Greg Leding, by the way, Joe, in the other room, he's back on Twitter. He posted another tweet a couple of minutes ago. State Representative Greg Leding, he's a Democrat from Fayetteville. Hashtag climate change is real. It threatens hashtag agriculture, our state's biggest industry by far. We can't shrug this off. Hashtag Paris Agreement. Now, this is like the second or possibly third tweet that he's made about agriculture and how this is going to affect us being able to feed ourselves, essentially, if because we're pulling out of the climate agreement. Now, so in the context of what you said, Richard, I kind of debunked, this whole this Gaia worship and this climate change and, trying to control people last hour. But we have a Democrat, an Arkansas Democrat, being a Democrat. I would love for some of our Arkansas Republicans to be Republicans. Do you agree with that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a sad day for Arkansas Republicans, and I say that as a chairman of a Republican Party county committee, that we have a governor who is probably going to stand in the way of repealing Obamacare on a national scale.
Yeah,
we have a governor who's going to stand with John Kasich of Ohio and do all they can to keep as many, working, able-bodied people on welfare rolls instead of helping them find jobs, instead of giving them a hand up, not a hand out. All those things that we campaign on as conservatives. And so I'm sick of it personally. I'm just sick of it. And I pray that God sends us a great primary challenger for our governor, someone who can really stand up and say, this is not where we want Arkansas to go. We should be leading the nation in conservative reforms, not moderate mediocrity, which is what we've had down there.
Well,
and go ahead.
I certainly. I'm to the point where I think we're going to have to endure Asa. Honestly, I don't know if there's anybody that can, at this point, will be able to beat him. And we have so many folks who are kind of worshiping his power. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. Don't get me. And I've been wrong a lot in the last year politically, especially when it comes to national politics. You were right though. You were a Trump supporter the whole time, right, Richard?
Yeah, actually, ever since 2009, he was my guy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet 3 a.m. on election night meant a lot more to you then than it even did to me. That's fantastic.
Gosh. It was a happy day, very happy day.
Oh, man.
But, and I think you might be right, Paul, though, because I think what we'll see is Asa kind of riding the coattails of this economic atmosphere we're going to be finding ourselves in. If you remember back in the Tea Party days, and that's where I got my start in politics, because I was the chairman of our Tea Party. One of our biggest complaints was the underemployment rate. You remember people used to always talk about that, where if you calculated the people who are underemployed and the people who are unemployed, we figured it would be around 25 to 30%.
Yeah.
And that rate, the job numbers came out today, and it's gone from 18% underemployment down to 8.6%. And that is a dramatic drop, right, over the past few years. Mm-hmm. And so, if we can get this tax reform done that Trump has proposed, if we can lower the corporate tax rate, if we can repeal Obamacare in a significant way, we may be stuck with ASA just because people will start getting happier. But we as conservatives should be able to look beyond that and make the case for conservative reforms. And, just as it is isn't good enough.
Yeah, no,
right? We should be leading this country as Arkansas, and we're just not right now.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. Matter of fact, I've got some numbers from David Crow, just sent me some numbers down in Faulkner County that he got off of a reputable website about Arkansas's bloated government and how, compared to other states, I mean, we have just a ridiculous amount, per 10,000, like 122 people per 10,000. That stacks up outrageous compared to other states' government. And so it is very clear that we need to cut here in the state of Arkansas. But I want to get back to this opportunity because that we have here nationally, because I hope we can actually repeal Obamacare. The governor did go out on PBS. We covered it yesterday for the second or third time on these national outlets, and he's essentially saying, whatever you do, don't pass Senate, do not pass what the House passed, because it basically will wind down Medicaid expansion. And so we have, we do have this weird, in many cases, aces to the left of Paul Ryan on some of that stuff because, he voted for it. But let's talk about what Donald Trump is proposing because, it really is interesting. He's pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords today. And he also has a tax plan that would do an amazing. I mean, it would be amazing. It takes standard deduction from $12,000 to $24,000. I mean, that's just the first thing. But what it does for business would be incredible. And so to talk about this opportunity that you're mentioning, I mean, that certainly plays a part in all of this.
Absolutely. And, the Democrats are brilliant. Time after time again, and the media, they will do whatever they can. They'll find a drum beat. They'll keep banging the drum until everyone starts agreeing with them, right? We saw it done to Sarah Palin. We saw it done to Mitt Romney with the dog on top of his car, and he was just a cruel human being who never tipped. He didn't even know the name of his garbage man. God help us, he can't be in the White House, right? And so for all these never-Trumpers out there, and God bless them, some of them are great conservatives, they allow these issues that have happened to every Republican politician in modern history to really, I think, cloud their judgment on what we have before us right now. You can love Trump, you can hate him. You can like that he wears his own name brand ties, or you can hate that he does that. But I don't care. What I think we as a conservative movement should care about are those fundamental principles and how we can implement those things in actual policy. And the opportunity we have now with majority in the House and a majority in the Senate and the White House, all the excuses of the establishment is gone. We've given them all three branches, right, or two branches with a bicameral legislature. Their excuses are gone. Right now, we need to be putting the pressure on them. We need to be putting the pressure on people like John Bozeman, saying, you should be leading this up there. Get these tax cuts passed. Get Obamacare repealed. Support our president, our Republican president. And if you can't bring yourself to actually say, I support Donald Trump, then you better get yourself to say, I support his policies. Because if this flounders, if the establishment, if the swamp monsters, if they don't allow these things to go through, and the day comes that we find out that the Russian investigation found there was no evidence of collusion, that Donald Trump did not do anything illegal because there's no evidence that says he does, then you will see a revolt in the working class in this country like I don't think we've seen in a long time. And I don't think the target will be on the Democrats' back at that point. I think it will be anyone who stood in the way of the progress the American people are expecting this president to make. And I tell you, if we don't see some fiery ambition from our Republican legislators up in D.C., then, I'll be right there alongside them saying this is your fault. We had the opportunity. We had the votes. Where were you? And, I applaud Congressman Crawford and Senator Cotton on a lot of the votes they've been making lately. I think they're singing the right tune, but I'd love to see more of it. And I think we as conservatives can't get lost in the weeds on this, right? We've been fighting for this since 2009, since all those thousands of people showed up at tea parties across our state, and we overwhelmed the Democrats throughout the state like never before. this is what we've asked for. And we knew the Democrats would fight back. We knew the media would throw everything they had at whoever it was we picked. So now's not the time to get discouraged. Now's the time to fight twice as hard, because we're almost there, and it's a really exciting time. We just have to close the deal.
Richard Castor, fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on. We're out of time, sir. Thank you so much. And folks can hear your show on Mountain Talk 97. Saturdays, at what time is that?
Saturdays at 8 a.m.
Saturdays at 8 a.m. All right, Richard, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, folks, got to go to break. Back in just a moment.